brought the fire with me. Look at that. I got the fire going. It's nice. Nice, right? It's nice and safe. So, welcome back, guys. Hi, happy Friday. Hope you guys are having a good day at school. Before we begin, let's remind you got your project due on Wednesday. That's Wednesday, everybody. We need to make sure that we are working on that, and we're going to have that completed in time for Wednesday, right? If you hand it in on time, you do it well, and you put some effort into it, you'll be happy with your grades, right? We're going to have a quiz on Monday. Monday, the quiz will be on everything in the Desert of Sin. So the stuff today is not on the quiz, just the Desert of Sin chapter. All of the notes, once again, folks, are in Schoology. Take a look. All right, folks, so welcome back. We are going to continue on with our discussion of section 41, right, which is in the first chapter of the period of Judges. Right, we said last week that Moses dies on the top of Mount Nebo looking into the promised land, but not actually allowed to go in because he struck the rock twice and did not command it, right? Moses has died, and the leader of the people is going to be who? That's right, Joshua, for those of you who said it, good job, right? It's going to be Joshua, right? And so Joshua, right, starts off by asking the people, right, like, will you obey me like you obeyed Moses, right? Will you obey the Lord? And they respond with, yes, right? We will do all that you have commanded us, and we will go wherever you send us. And they even impose a self-inflicted punishment that anyone who doesn't obey will be killed. Right? It's like we're not going back to the desert. We know what it means to disobey God. We know what it means to question him. We're not going back to the desert like our parents were. All right, so let's go ahead and get started today. I'd like to do Jericho if we can. So notice chapter 2 here in section 41 of the book of Joshua. Notice, new book in the Bible. We're not in the book of the books of the Torah anymore. We are now in the book of Joshua, which is the first of the historical books, right? And it says that Joshua is going to send 2 spies. He's going to send spies into the land to reconnoiter it, right? He's going to take a play out of Moses' playbook, and the first place they're going to go is to the city of Jericho. Right, Jericho was this massive city. It was known for its impenetrable walls, and the houses of the city were built into the walls of the city. So it was like this massive, massive place. And they come to the house, right? And if you're looking at it, right, we got the iPad open to here. Right, and they're going to come and they're going to meet this prostitute named Rahab. So just highlight Rahab and just put down there the note. Let's see if I can get it to open up here for me. Right, that she is the prostitute in Jericho who helps the Israelite spies. The reason why we highlight that she was a prostitute is to show that she had a little bit of a checkered past, right? That the Bible is not filled with people that were always saints, but rather that people that may have done some things in their life that they're not proud of, or are forced to do things that they're not proud of, but yet they have this experience and this conversion, and they do something awesome. Like Rahab's going to be a descendant of Jesus. Like, whoa, that's pretty cool, right? You would think that Jesus would have this like perfect family, but no, his family is filled with sinners, just like us. All right, and so it says they come here to the city, and Rahab is going to help hide these spies in the city of Jericho, right? So it breaks out that there are people in the Jericho who know that the Israelite spies are there. And when they go in search of them, it says in verse 6 that Rahab is going to lead them to the roof of her house and hide them among the stalks of plants and flax there at the top of her house. Right? And she's going to say to the spies, right, in verse 8, this is very important. Before the spies lay down, Rahab went up on the roof and said, I know that the Lord has given you the land, that a dread of you has come upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land tremble with fear because of this. Like, guys, this is powerful stuff, right? Right? She goes on to continue, right? For we have heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt. Time out. Remember all those times that the Israelites were wandering in the desert and Moses would refer to God's reputation and be like, God, what will the Egyptians think of you? What will the other nations say about you? Right? Here we see, right, that God's reputation has preceded him. Right? So if you can highlight verse 8 there for me. Once again, you can see this in Schoology, and you can kind of split screen it and add the notes as I go through it. right? And that God's reputation has preceded him. Rahab has heard about everything that the God of the Israelites has done to get the people out of Egypt and how they've helped them wander for these 40 years in the desert, right? And it says, notice the faith that Rahab has, right? That she, right, is like, I know that this city is going to be destroyed because I've heard about what your God is capable of. That's intense. That's intense. Right? And notice, she even says in verse 11, we heard and our hearts melted within us. Everyone is utterly dispirited because of you, since the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. Holy moly, right? This is the thing, is that Rahab is a woman of faith, right? So highlight that the Lord your God is God in heaven on earth and on earth below, in verse 11. And just write down that Rahab is a woman of faith. She believes that the Lord is God. Right? Like, this is remarkable. She's not a person that is in the nation of Israel. She's a foreigner. And she's going to have a belief, right? And notice, when God comes to destroy the city, he's going to save Rahab. Because that first commandment is so important. It's so important, guys. All right? And so she says to them, give me a reliable sign that you will allow my father, my brother, my brothers, my sisters, and my whole family to live, and then you will deliver us from death. Right? Kind of like, hey, in exchange for helping you guys escape the authorities here in Jericho, give me a promise that you won't kill us. You'll let us live. Right? And so she makes this promise with them in verse 17, right? That as long as they tie this scarlet cord to the window of her home, that when they come and destroy the city of Jericho, everybody in that room will be left unharmed. All right, and so in highlight in verse 17 and 18, it says, they answer her, we are free of this oath that you make of us, unless when we come into this land, you tie this scarlet cord in the window through which you are letting us down, right? So Rahab, her home is built into the walls of the city. And so they let the spies down secretly in order to get away. And she's going to leave this cord kind of tied up in the window. All right? Verse 24, the spies come back to Joshua. Notice their report. It says, they assured Joshua, the Lord has given all this land into our power. Indeed, all the inhabitants of the land tremble with fear because of us. They're like, let's go. We got this thing, right? We got it, right? Remember, the 40 years of wandering has worked, right? It has taught these people what it means to disobey God, right? To question God. And so it's worked, all right? And so I'll highlight there in verse 24, right, where it says they assured Joshua, right? Just highlight that right there. The spies bring back a favorable report, one in which God has given them the land, all right? All right. So now, right, if you turn to section 42, we're not going to do this section very much, right? We're going to go very fast. So the Israelites, in order to get into the city of Jericho, if you turn to the map that's at the end of this section, they're going to kind of do the end around and come up along the backside here of the promised land and do like, we're going to come right across the Jordan River. So the cities of Gilgal and Jericho are thinking that they're safe because they're separated by the Jordan River. Right? But Joshua is going to have the people cross through the Jordan River, just like the Red Sea. Right? What he's going to do is he's going to have the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant into the Jordan River. And as soon as the priests holding the Ark of the Covenant, now remember the Ark of the Covenant was believed to be what? The throne of God. Very good. So they bring the Ark into the river and the river will cease flowing. How crazy is that? Right, so if the water's flowing this way, the ark comes in and it just stops flowing. And so the water from here on out dries up. And the Israelites are going to pass through the Jordan River on dry ground. And Moses is going to have one elder from each tribe pick up a stone, a rock, from the middle of the riverbed, right, to take as a memorial, as a way to remember this remarkable miracle here that God is performing for the people to get them into the promised land. All right. So the only thing you got to highlight in section 42 is in the commentary, right? Is that just as one of the great miracles which Moses performed is parting the Red Sea, Joshua is going to part the Jordan River here at the beginning of his leadership. All right. And Joshua is going to instruct 12 men, one from each tribe, to pick up a stone from the riverbed as a memorial for this miraculous event, right? So just highlight that in the commentary there. All right. Once again, all this stuff is in schools, you guys. All right. All right. So now what's going to happen? We're looking at the section 43, the Battle of Jericho. As a young buck, this was it, guys. This was like the best video, right? You guys ever see VeggieTales growing up as kids? There was a VeggieTales video for this that was like money. If I can figure it out, I'll put it at the end of this video for you guys to watch, right? It's like the little peas, these little French peas, right? But it was awesome. So notice what happens, right? In this Battle of Jericho, right? It says, right, while Joshua was near Jericho, we're reading here at the beginning of section, 43, verse 13. While Joshua was near Jericho, he raised his eyes and saw one who stood facing him, drawn sword in hand. Right? When Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you one of us or one of our enemies?" he replied, "Neither. I am the commander of the armies of the Lord." And Joshua fell to the ground in worship. Who's that? Who's the commander of the armies of the Lord? Saint Michael the Archangel, right? Like how cool is this, right? Saint Michael the Archangel is going to show up to Joshua, right, to fight. And I love the question, right? When Joshua says, "Are you one of us or one of our enemies?" he says, "Neither," because God doesn't have sides in all of this. God doesn't love the Israelites and hate the people of Jericho, right? It's almost as if St. Michael is here to carry out a judgment on the city of Jericho because of their unbelief, their lack of faith, right? Now, notice if you look over on the side, it says, why does God allow other nations to be destroyed here in the Bible? That's a good question. How come God is going to allow these nations of Jericho and Gilgal and the Philistines, right, to be destroyed, also that Israel can live in their land? Right? And what we see here, right, if you read right there, is that what we see going on in the book of Joshua is the flip side of God's mercy. It's his justice. God's justice, right? When we looked at the Israelites, why'd they have to wander for 40 years? Because eventually God's not going to force himself upon you. Right? And so we see God's justice here, which is the flip side of his mercy and his love, right? He's going to have to punish these idolatrous, right, and immoral nations who have chosen to go their own way, right? You notice Rahab, it gives us the key to the answer to all this. She says that everybody in the city is afraid of the people of Israel because they know that their God is the Lord of heaven and of earth below. Shouldn't that come with a little bit of like a, hey, we believe in that God too? Can we worship that God like Rahab is doing? But it doesn't, right? They know that the Israelite God is God in heaven on earth below, but they don't repent. It says they are afraid, they know, and they don't repent. And that's the problem going on here with this. All right? And so what's happened is pretty cool, right? During this, St. Michael is delivering the battle plans to Joshua. He says, this is what you're going to do. In verse 6, verse 2, he said, I have delivered Jericho, its king and its warriors into your hands. Have all the soldiers circle the city, marching around it once for 6 days. Right? So for days 1 through 6, I guess that would be 6, 1 through 6, right, you're going to march around the city one time. All right? And then on the 7th day, you're going to march around the city 7 times, have the priests blow their horns, and everyone give a long shout. And with that, the walls will come tumbling down, right? This is what we call liturgical warfare, right? It's warfare through praise, right? Through not necessarily fighting and battling, but it's through praise, right? Doing what God has asked us to do. All right. And so that's exactly what happens if you turn the page on chapter 6. Joshua's going to have the people march around the city one time, right, for 6 days. On day 7, they all march around it, right? And at the end of the 7th day, they all yell out a huge shout, and rah, right? And the walls of the city come tumbling down. Right? And it says that Joshua says that everyone is to be put under the ban, which is the complete and utter destruction of the city. All the people are to be killed. All the valuables is to be put in the treasury of the Lord, because it's to show, right, and this is in the little text box in the top right-hand corner, right, it's to show that God is victorious for the battle, not the people. Because usually to the victors go the spoils. If I'm a soldier and we win, I get to take money, valuables, things with me as souvenirs. As to the victors go the spoils. But here, all the valuables go to God to show that God is the victor. All right? All right. And that's exactly what happens. They go into the city and they are going to put the whole city under the ban. And the only person that they're going to leave alive is Rahab and her family. All right? All right? Very good. All right? We're gonna skip a lot of just sections about how the people conquer the land, right? But if we go back to this little map over here, right, at the end of that last section, this map, right, you'll see how the people, they move very quickly, right, into the promised land through the Jordan River over here, right, and then they fight this battle at Gibeon, and from there they go north and south, and they conquer the promised land like a hot knife through butter, because they are so faithful after those 40 years of wandering. All right, and then from there, right, the second part of the book of Joshua is the dividing up of the land in the promised land. So there's another map here for you to see. This is how all of the land in the promised land is divided up amongst the tribes. And some of you guys may be thinking like, hey, what happened to Caleb? What happened to that guy? Right, he was one of the good spies. Joshua seems to get all the accolades. What about Caleb? Don't feel bad for Caleb. Caleb, when he is brought into the promised land, Joshua is going to give to Caleb and to his descendants the hill country in Hebron, right, which is like the filet mignon, the creme de la creme of the promised land. The piece of land on a hill with a view and a pool in the backyard, right? Caleb, because of his faithfulness, gets like the best piece of real estate in the promised land. All right. And so when we end here, the people are successfully, safely living in the promised land. Yes, finally, back to where God had promised the people to live with Abraham, right? Jacob's descendants after 430 years of living in Egypt, 40 years of wandering in the desert. Finally, they're back in their home where God had promised them to be. All right, so when we come back on Monday, we will take a look at Samson, right? One of the coolest judges. He's known for his strength, and then we'll take a look at Ruth, and we'll be ready for our trimester exams, guys. All right, so have a wonderful weekend. Remember, your project is due on Wednesday. Don't forget about that. We got a quiz on Monday on everything in the desert of sin. All right, if you need anything, email me. Hope you guys are having a great day at school. Enjoy your weekend. Go to Mass on Sunday. Jesus loves you, wants to see you. All right, Moran, out. 'Cause I'm the man. I'm Mr. Moran. Mr. Moran. That's who I am.